everybody, this is Yifat, your G+GoTo Gal, and we are in Tech Talks today with Gideon Rosenblatt. I'm not saying your last name right, am I?
Close. Rosenblatt, yeah.
Rosenblatt. And today we're talking about engagement. And Gideon is not talking about this a lot, but I did not know that he was giving a talk at TED, which is pretty impressive. And the talk is very good. It's on his website. And if you can give everybody the URL, they can watch that.
Sure, it's alchemyofchange.net.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
It's right there on the main page, right, when you go to the website.
Yep. Yeah, you'll see it.
And it's a short talk, and it's very good, and it talks about how do you bring meaningness, right, to businesses. And we were discussing, you were using the term soul, and you were saying that there's a little bit of a problem with that, but I think the concept is great. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, let me talk about the experience at TED because using that experience at TED kind of exposed me to something that I didn't quite fully appreciate going into it, and that is that word soul is something that people protect. In a way, I mean, it's one of those kind of sacred words that you have to be very careful about using. And so in my talk, I was talking about companies that were trying to connect with people's souls. And I got a lot of feedback from people afterwards saying, wow, how could you say that Apple is a soulful company? Look at the things that they're doing in China, and and same thing with Whole Foods. Every single one of these companies that I mentioned, even Google, right, has certain aspects of them that are not great, right? And so when you start using words like soul, it's kind of a dangerous thing. And so I found myself kind of having to do a lot of explaining afterwards, and it led to some great conversations. But so let me dive into a few of those right now, just because I think this is a very important topic. Companies, as we all know, corporations have a huge impact on our lives. Not just as employees, we work. Many of us work in companies, and I'm going to use the word companies rather than corporations going forward, just because corporations makes it sound really big. And in fact, actually, you could use the word organizations, right? Because many of the things that I'm talking about apply to nonprofit organizations and different types of legal structures as well. Organizations and companies affect us in lots of different ways, obviously. So we work there, but we also interact with them on a day in, day out basis. When we go to the store, when we're working on Google+, all these little points of contact that we have actually are a much bigger impact in our life than if you kind of go back just like 150 years. Most of our connections in life were really with the people around us, right? Our communities, our family, those kinds of things. And now if you think about the primary points of contact that we have in a day are either with people who work in companies, or they're being facilitated by companies. So even think about all of us today and the work all the hours we spend on Google+, wouldn't be possible were it not for this company behind the scenes actually providing this incredible platform. So I think that this, when you start to kind of dig behind how these organizations are set up, it has a huge impact on our experiences, the relationships that we have with these entities and the people who work in them. Now,
and this is actually kind of interesting because, if I may, because a lot of people were talking about companies coming into Google+ and how they hate that, and they feel like they're going to be marketed to, and all the bad stuff that comes with it. But like you're saying, our relationship with these companies is very beneficial. I mean, we buy stuff from them, we interact with them, and so there's a change that you're about to talk about that's happening with the companies and how they can become better. And I think inside Google Plus, Google Plus is actually going to help that change happen.
Yeah.
Right, but it's interesting to see how companies were and how they used to interact and how we feel about them, and the shift that you're talking about that's happening or is happening with social media and everything with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that the point of my TED Talk was that there are lots of companies that have gotten quite good at trying to reach us at a very deep level, at a soul level, you might say, right? And that takes a number of different forms. Like in Apple's case, the way that Apple touches our soul, it's really by touching that creative aspect, the think different side of things, right? But there are other types of companies. There are movie companies that touch our souls in different ways by helping us to experience emotions on a deep way. The thing is, here's the catch, and this is the point of the TED Talk, is that you can do that in kind of an extractive way, which is to try to tap people's souls as a way to make money. So that's one thing, right? And some companies are getting very, very good at doing that. And my point about in the TED Talk was that this isn't just about tapping the soul. In the new model that we're moving into, it also has to increasingly be about feeding the soul. And so that's what I want to talk about today is what does that look like when you have companies that truly are feeding the soul as well as tapping it? When you can get that kind of that combination of tapping and feeding, you're engaging people at a much, much deeper level than what we're typically used to. That's important for a number of reasons, but one of the most important reasons is that the way that economic value is produced today is much more collaborative than it ever was in the past. Think about Twitter. Think about Google+. These are just obvious examples, but I want to start with that. We couldn't be having this conversation without Google right now. But in a way, Google couldn't be having this conversation without us, right? All of this interactivity and all this stuff that's going on, we are contributing some of our most valuable assets that we have, which is time. And we are investing deeply in these platforms in ways that make us, and this is an overused term, but co-creators, right? We are co-creating economic value with companies like Google. Those are, same with Facebook. Think about Facebook with no posts. What would that be? A ghost town. That's where it's really obvious, is when you can see, entities like Google Plus and things like that. But I would even say that if you scratch the surface, you can find this kind of co-creating relationship in all kinds of businesses, and that building these kind of deeper connections with customers and other stakeholders is essential to being able to get to that kind of collaborative relationship. So here's an example of this. Let's say, think of any company. This will be an interesting test. Anybody, just a random type of company making whatever, a service or product. Anybody?
Microsoft.
Oh, okay. Well, that one's okay. So that's one that.
That's why I gave you a hard one.
No, it's actually that one's pretty easy. So I was thinking you were going to give me something like a shoe company, but Microsoft is pretty easy, right? So that's one where they produce the software, but the only way that software has value is so let's talk about Excel maybe, right? So the only way that Excel has economic value over the long haul is if I know how to use it. And because over the long haul, right, in the short term maybe that's not true. Like you buy the product and that's fine. But over the long haul, if you think about it more from an outcomes perspective and an impact perspective, what's really happening is the economic value that's being created is not just me buying Excel, it's me using Excel. turning it into spreadsheets, right? Using Excel to create spreadsheets that then go on to create other economic value. So that's a partnership between me and Microsoft. Even though Microsoft sometimes doesn't, they may not see it that way, but you know, that's this this whole idea of collaboration and a focus on impact. The shoe company is another example of this, right? I mean, I really what Nike is helping me to do, and they get this, right? I mean, the whole just do it. They understand that what they're doing is empowering people to be athletic, to be their best. And the very best marketers in the world understand this. Right? They understand that this is a partnership, and that this isn't just about selling a shoe. This is about making something possible for people, right? Making them, helping them to be more athletic, helping them to excel. So I'll stop there for a sec. Yeah.
You're making me think about two things. One, that Google is really not providing. They're providing a service, but more than that, they're providing tools. And what happened with these tools is what we do with them. And so they provide Hangouts, but Hangouts are nothing unless, we come in and we create something with it. We start interviewing, we start working together, we start teaching, we create chef Hangouts. They provide the tools, and then they kind of like open it up with their API, and they're saying, okay, here it is, and now you guys go make whatever you want out of it, which is, in my mind, it's really great because it's kind of like open source, right? PHP, MySQL, everything. It's like everybody's coming together and creating this wonderful thing that is free, but it generates billions. On the other hand, makes that feel good, for the people who are working there. Google is one of the best companies to work for. If you ever went to one of their buildings, it's awesome. So it looks like, hold on a second. It looks like what they're doing is that they understand culture of fun, kind of like Virgin also, right? They understand the culture of fun. They provide the tools, and they're like, here, we'll help you create whatever you want to create. You'll take it to the next level.
So I just wanted to follow up on this, is that these were actually concepts that we discussed in our Genius Women's panel, which was part of Ted Rainier, where Gideon spoke. We actually had the privilege of having some remarkable people who work with Nike, Amy Jo Martin, who actually launched the Real Shack and works directly with the Nike organization, as well as Jen Lim, another, these are all Ted Rainier speakers, who did the Delivering Happiness campaign for Zappos. And also Nadia Mahmood, whose husband she co-founded Jolcona with, and as well as Daria Musk, who, as we know, actually was key and instrumental of launching this platform. So we did an immersive engagement and talked about how we can co-create in this community, but more importantly, how we can focus our different segments. And this is something that I think that Gideon has been remarkable at. He has actually connected the dots through the Google ecosystem. And so that is a key issue at this point in time, is how to focus your message and tailor it to a particular circle without spamming the rest of the ecosphere. So that's something that I think that we really need to address at this point in time, because now it's getting very noisy.
Want to take it, Gideon, or?
Yeah. There's an interesting post that Rod Dunn put out this morning, some research that he had done, I think, last week, about what is okay and what is not okay to do here on Google+. And if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend looking at this. It's a great write-up. And what he was asking is, this kind of gets to your point, Jairus, about the noise and what is acceptable, what is spammy, what is not. And what he was asking was, is it okay to market my stuff on Google+? And in what ways is it okay? Right. So he was asking things like, is it all right for me to post a picture of me receiving an award, right? Is it okay for me to post the first chapter of my book? And basically what he found was that people are pretty forgiving, but that there are certain types of activities that are not cool. And I think that this kind of goes to this point of, Google gave us a platform here. And now what's happening is we are creating a culture. Each of us, through little tiny actions that we take every single day, are collectively creating a culture of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So this is another example of us we're building a layer on top of Google+. That layer could not have been anticipated by the folks at Google. There's no way they could have seen all of the different ways that we're using Hangout. But more importantly, all the subtle nuances of what is okay to do, what is not okay to do, how is it that it's all right to use the platform in this way, but it's kind of spammy when you use it that way. And so, I think that is inevitable when it comes to these kinds of platforms, especially when you're talking about social things that are deeply social. Those types of services are deeply impacted by customers. And I think that where we're moving is to a world where more and more services and even more products are becoming social.
So how would I think that kind of stuff depends on engagement, right? So for example, if you and I have a great relationship and you created a book and I want to support you, then definitely I don't mind if you say, hey, I wrote this new book, it talks about blah blah, it can help you with blah, and go ahead, it's only $2, buy it. I would not consider it spam. I don't think that you're being a mean marketer or a salesperson trying to sell me something. I'll think that because of our relationship, you care about my interest and you think this will serve me. And so it sounds like as long as the engagement inside of Google Plus is real and true, and the relationships are being built before anyone tries to sell you something, then people will not feel like they're spammed and they're being sold to, rather they want to buy, right? And so the question is, how do you develop this deep engagement? What do you need to do inside of Google Plus to create deep, soulful relationships rather than just very shallow, huge networks that don't mean anything?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Most of my focus in my writing and things like that has been more organizational rather than personal. But I think a lot of the same, it's the same tenets, right? And I think that there's a certain element here also of objectivity. Do you have something to gain from pushing my book or recommending my book? People can smell that. They can smell that a mile away. And so if something smacks of you're hawking somebody and somebody's services or book or whatever, and you're going to get something in return, we can smell it, and we unconsciously just kind of pull away from that. I think that same phenomena is part of why social marketing is so powerful. People have this weird desire to want to tell other people about the products and services that they're using, the stuff that they really like, even when there's not really any particular advantage to them for doing that. They do it anyways, and it's those recommendations that are the most valuable, right? Because when when I hear that you're reading a book and you say that you really like it, and I know that it's not your book, you don't get any financial gain from that, that makes me interested in wanting to read that book, obviously. So that's where some of this, that's where, again, this is another way in which this kind of co-creation of value, it's not just in the usage of the product, but now it's also in the marketing of it, right? So companies are now getting into a place, the really good ones know how to be able to tap that kind of social marketing phenomena. And, this is it. I'm going to jump into another idea that is related to this idea of the Soulful Company, which is the idea of permeability, organizational permeability. So, and hang in there for just a sec, because I'm going to go a little bit biological for a second. But I love looking at nature as an inspiration for organizations and our organizational structures, because I happen to believe that we are an outgrowth of nature, right? Each of us, like the way that we are, that we organize ourselves is, I mean, we are an outgrowth of biology. And so I look at the cell as a really interesting model for organizational structure. And basically what happened is, if you look at cells, much of their intelligence is not actually in the nucleus of the cell, it's in the membrane that surrounds the cell. That's the thing that decides what information gets in and gets put out from the cell. And there are all these little nodes and things like that that plug into this membrane that are called receptors that are basically built to help the cell receive information from the outside world. So this metaphor of the membrane, right? If we think about companies as having a membrane, okay, which is kind of a weird idea, but I believe it's true, and I believe that that membrane that surrounds the organization is actually people. That the way that companies interact with the world around them is first and foremost through people, right? Now this makes sense on a just an intuitive level, like at a gut level, right? The way that the way that you interact with Starbucks, right? You don't interact with the company. You're almost always, I mean, you're interacting with the people who work there. And so this notion of permeability, the Starbucks ability to connect with us, its ability to bring in information, is all keyed into how permeable it is, right? How effective it is at being able to get information out and to bring information in. And the key to doing that, I think what we're seeing is that tying it into these social networks, tying the company into the social networks of people, that is kind of a very new, like just over the last 10 years, we're starting to see more and more of that.
Is there anything that you can say that Google and Apple and Whole Foods are doing well? Because, when you go to Whole Foods, you see the people who bag the groceries, and they're happy. They're just really happy doing it. And when you go to like H-E-B here in Austin, they're not happy. So what do you think that Whole Foods is doing or Google is doing that make their employees happy at whatever position they are, and that other companies are not doing and can learn from?
Yeah. So I think just from, I read a lot of business books. I've talked to lots of people about these ideas, and I think that there are there's kind of two main things that I've taken away as important sources of that feeling of soulfulness, of happiness. One is a sense of meaning, meaning in the work that you're doing. And then the other is connection, connection with the people who are doing that work with you. Those are really powerful motivators. And, I think that below that, if you think about things like Maslow's hierarchy, I mean, there are certain things, like you have to have a paycheck, right? You have to be able to, have a place to live. There are basic level things that, there's good research that shows that if you don't have those things, you're not going to be happy. But above those, above those requirements, you start to look more at these kinds of intrinsic, kind of internal qualities of, do I have a sense of meaning? And am I feeling a strong sense of connection with the people around me? And, one thing on this question of meaning, I actually feel like there's two kinds of meaning, just based on the conversations I've had with people. One is when you feel a strong sense of mission and alignment with the mission of the organization. So I used to work at Microsoft. After that, I went and worked on a mission-driven consulting firm. We worked with, all of our clients were mission-driven organizations. The people who worked at that place, at Groundwire, they had huge alignment around mission, and that was powerful. But you can see it at Google. Like when you hear people from Google posting on Google+, like you can feel they're excited about what they're doing. They believe in that mission. So I think that's one sense of meaning. But there's another one too, which is getting meaning from just loving the work that you're doing. Right? It doesn't have to be even aligned to some grand mission. It could be, so like quilting. People who are into quilting, just the act of quilting brings immense joy to them. Same thing, like for me, I love thinking through business models. I love creating things. I used to love doing user interface design. I mean, that stuff just brought me joy. I would stay up all night doing that, right? And I did at Microsoft. I would stay up all night doing user interface design. It was crazy, but I loved it. So I think that, when people have that, that sense of meaning, and then also that sense that, that sense of fellowship when you're working with other people and, they're happy and they're excited about what they're doing, that's also, and I see some of that at Whole Foods. When I go to Whole Foods, there's, that kind of that sense of joy there.
So how do you bring that to Google Plus as a stream? Jerry, we'll just open it up for discussion in about 10 minutes, if that's okay. How do you bring that into the stream? How do you build a little community of people who care about you and care about what you're doing? And I think one of the answers, I just thought about it, is because the nature of Google Plus is about passion. And it seems like people aggregate together based on passion and things that they love, so that kind of like by default is happening. But when you have a lot of followers, let's say 1,000, 5,000, or more than that, now it becomes very difficult to maintain real relationships with everybody around you. So how do you build a community around yourself that is around one mission? And if, as a person, you probably have a bunch, right? You're not just like trying to sell one thing. So how do you build that? How do you develop the deep relationships? And how do you create actually Google into, more than just the tools that Google provides?
Yeah. So, if it's all right, I think what I'll do is I'm going to screen share a diagram that I used to use in my old job. And it is, hold on, just 1 second here. There we go. Is that showing up okay? Can you see this green pyramid?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I call an engagement pyramid. And it's, I'm going to close out some of the stuff here so to get that out of the way. It's an engagement pyramid, and this is what I used to use at Groundwire when we were consulting with these mission-driven organizations and helping them to think about the way that they engage their constituents. I'm not going to go into huge depth here on this right now, but I think it relates to your question, Yifat. So the core idea here is that at the base of the pyramid you have people who you're engaging with at a very light level, and there are a lot of them. And then at the top, it is a much smaller selection of people, but you're engaging them much more deeply. What this was, again, this was originally intended for organizations. The idea, I'll just explain very quickly, is that kind of the first level of contact that's going on is you've got somebody and they're kind of looking at what a company or an organization is doing, following their stuff maybe in the news, hearing about it, but they're not really directly connected. At some point, they decide to follow them on a social network. They friend them or they like them on Facebook or they start to follow their page maybe here on Google+. But there's not really anything deeper than that. They're just trying to kind of like hear what that person is doing, what that organization is doing and stay abreast of it, but in a pretty lightweight way. From there, it goes to endorsing. And here maybe that might be the equivalent on Google+ of sharing a circle with somebody in it or a page in it. It's saying, hey, I think this is interesting and I'm willing to share this with you. I endorse this person or this page. From there up, it gets a little bit more organizational in focus. This is about people actually getting involved in the organization, contributing time and money, and from there building a sense of ownership. They stop using the word you when they're talking about the organization, and they start using the word we. And then at the very top is where you have people starting to then represent the organization to other people, leading other people, bringing in other people, engaging other people in the organization. So I'm going to switch back. I'm going to switch away from the screen share. Am I back? No.
Yes.
Now I'm back. How does that relate to your question? I believe that in order to build soulful relationships here on Google+, it's about prioritizing. You can't have soulful, I don't think it's possible to have soulful relationships with 12,000 people. So what I've done with the way that I manage circles, and I don't think this is unique. I've seen a lot of people doing this, but I have circles. I have like a tier 1 circle, a tier 2, and a tier 3 circle. And I'm constantly moving people up through those tiers based on the interactions I have. Sometimes I move them down. It is my way of trying to have deeper connections with the people, that smaller group. That first group, that tier 1 is really about 45 people, and that is a little bit more manageable. I think so that's one thing, is a focus question. I think the other thing is something. Last week I did this experiment on the wisdom of crowds, and it was very interesting. But I made a couple of whopper mistakes while I was doing this experiment, and believe me, it was very tempting to just try to hide those mistakes, but because it's kind of embarrassing to admit that I'd screwed up, not once but twice. And but I didn't. I said, no, I screwed up, and here's what it is. And so and I did a post on this afterwards. I was calling it HOT, which is honest, open, and transparent. And I think that's another aspect of soulfulness, right? Which is that ability to just kind of let your guard down and say, hey, look, this is who I am. I make mistakes every once in a while, not perfect, and it's that kind of that essence of that humanity, right? That kind of the thing about us being not perfect. We're not angels, right? We screw up, and that ability to admit that makes people feel a connection with you. And so I think that's the other aspect. So it's kind of like focus and then really being hot, honest, open, and transparent.
I like that a lot. It's because, when you're not being hot, what happens to you is what happened to Netflix when they messed up. And they came up with a big, it's all our fault letter to everybody, and, it became a big fiasco. Whereas I think JetBlue, right, they messed up, and they came out and said, hey, we messed up. And everybody's like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, yeah.
So definitely, and you can see the different culture, really, with JetBlue and Netflix.
Absolutely. Which,
by the way, I'm canceling my subscription today.
I did too. When that happened, actually, that was a nightmare. I had actually pretty high affinity with Netflix. I had pretty high loyalty to them. I mean, even this time last year, just this time last year, I was a big backer of Netflix. Because actually, I think some of what they do is pretty good. They have a pretty good internal culture, and they're pretty well run. But I don't know what happened to them last summer. I mean, it was a disaster. And then they just kept compounding it over and over by adding more and more layers of mistakes on top of it.
And now they're coming up with a pro-SOPA, their own pro-SOPA legislation, and using our money, you know, so it's kind of like, okay, you don't want customers.
Wow, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so let's open it up to a discussion, everybody. What do you see on Google+? How do you see engagement with your circles, with the people around you? How do you build that type of soulful interaction inside Google+? Feel free, Joyce.
Can I jump in quickly?
Yes.
It's funny. I thought this is really on topic, as later today I'm releasing my Customer Service Excellence Manifesto, which is really about the fact that I think you really have to lay your soul bare, and people will forgive if you are human. Errors happen. It's just a part of nature, and it's amazing how well we can connect with others when we are so honest, be that on a personal or a business level. Google+, everybody knows, I so love, because not only can you be yourself, but you get to meet other people being themselves. And you can take that out to the business level, which is incredible. But on your hot comment, who knew Paris Hilton was that smart? My God.
Okay, fill me in. What did Paris Hilton do?
Well, he says hot, she says hot all the time. Who knew that she understood the depth of that? I just thought that was cute.
I think this is going to turn into a meme.
Hey, just one thing on that, because I think that's, this whole question of customer service, that's actually one of the places where we get disconnected from soul the most frequently, I think. Right? You're on a support line. You have, like, you're talking to an airline, and maybe someone, a loved one has just died, or there are these moments in life where you need a human. You need somebody to show you a little bit of humanity. And in the times when you get that back, when that humanity is reflected back, and you have somebody go, you know what? Let me try to help you out here. I totally get it. Let me, that connection is just so powerful. You're so grateful. Mm-hmm. And by contrast, if what you get is that typical script, that scripted language that we hear so often, it's just so annoying. You just want to reach through the phone and rip their lungs out, because it's like, oh my God, because it's an insult to your humanity.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
If there's one thing people need to take away, and obviously not the people in this room, but if you treat the customer the way you want to be treated, mm-hmm. because in essence, you and Yifat and Gideon and my mother and my sister, they are all my customer. If you really want to bring it down, every interaction requires you to bring 100% of your responsibility to be the best you can be in that interaction. And I boil it down to such a minuscule, but if you think about that in every interaction, then people are going to change how they interact with people on a business level. And I'll get off my podium now.
No, I think that, another way of saying that too that I loved it is being of service.
Yeah.
Because being of service actually isn't just, being of true service actually has kind of spiritual connotations, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
This is a deep, not to go too deep, but when we're operating from a place of true service, we touch people, we reach people at a level that, is really touching their soul. And that all comes back to the intentions, right? Yeah. What's really the motivation behind whatever it is that we're doing at work, our interactions with other employees, but in particular our connections with customers. We know when somebody is trying to help us out versus when they're just trying to kind of go through the motions.
Rosabeth Moss Cantor wrote a book called Supercorp, and which is an amazing book, and what she did is she looked at organizations who were not only working globally but working locally within their community, and what she articulated as a successful corporation or business was one that had a vision in their mission statement around a visionary purpose in their mission statement, which did not necessarily serve the bottom line, which I found absolutely fascinating. And another one, delivering happiness. Tony Hsieh with Zappos. I mean, he's really got the culture down. You know, what it takes to create a humanistic culture. And Jen Lim, who wrote the Zappos culture book, I mean, it's, you know, if there are 3 books about how to authentically engage your constituency, your client base, those are, you know, the Zappos culture book, Delivering Happiness, and Supercorp are some of the best work out there, because it's actually asks the person to elevate to a higher purpose, and rather than just serving the bottom line. And I think in this zeitgeist of connectivity and of social engagement, I think that's really where our hearts are.
Agreed. Yeah.
Zig Ziglar said that you can get anything you want in life if you help enough people get what they want in life.
That's very well said.
Right, and so it's very interesting, because I think that Google Plus, because it is based on passion, and it's easier to share your passion, and that's the feeling that people get around you. And right in the comments, Drew Jones says that he thinks that the real trick is finding the right-minded people to begin with. People that produce are the ones benefiting from Google Plus. And I think it's true, because it's kind of like, you know, birds of a feather flock together. If you are surrounding yourself with loving, giving, positive people, then that's going to be the experience that you have there. And one wonderful aspect of Google Plus is the blocking, right? You can really decide what company you're going with, and if someone is just there to add negativity just for the sake of negativity, then you can remove them and concentrate on delivering your best in the best environment that you can be in. So maybe that's going to be like a new way of bringing the goodness out of people, because when goodness is coming at you, you want to, you know, reciprocate. And then that kind of like ripples out.
Yeah. Well, I think this is something that I've been thinking a lot about over the last 2 months, which is there is this really cool culture here of people. Well, I mean, people trying to protect a culture, I guess, is maybe another way of saying it. You know, I've seen people with really big followings trying to do all this stuff to make sure that people who are just getting started have a shot here. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we can always do more, actually. But I think that you know, when you see people with big followings doing things that go out of their way to recognize people with, you know, maybe 200 followers or stuff like that, that sends a message, right? Those kinds of actions speak way louder than words. When people are doing that kind of stuff, it helps to create a culture that says, you know what? This place, we want to make this place a really great place to interact, and we want it to be open. We want it to be, you know, there to be opportunity here. Same thing when somebody's getting out of line, and I see, you know, every once in a while you just see somebody come in and say, hey, you know what, I think you're a little bit out of line, and you know, maybe even stepping in on behalf of somebody else. Those kinds of things matter. You know, that's the stuff that creates the culture here.
You know, what you said is actually pretty interesting, because if you find forums, right, if you go to forums of any topic, people just lash out and call other people names and become very, you know, it's a place to get out all your anger and frustration, because you're hiding kind of like behind this forum, whatever username you chose. And here, it's actually, I think, the reverse is happening, where maybe because of Hangouts, maybe because you have to have real names, maybe because, you know, you have to be your own person, people are actually trying to be nicer and support and share and tell people how to share and how to be supportive and how to gain more friends. So it's a very interesting spin of things, right? It's pretty new.
Yeah.
Chris Brogan is really good at that. I don't know if you've followed Chris Brogan. He's been in social media for a long time. He's a marketer back on the East Coast, but he is whom I would call one of the mayors of social media. He is so generous and always looks for the newbie and advocates for the new person coming into a social situation.
Yeah.
So actually, yeah, Randy said something very interesting. YouTube is like that kind of stuff where all the negativity is coming out. And Google Plus is where all the positive comments are coming out. So why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it is anonymity, but I don't know, Randy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think the problem is anonymity. Once we have our faces on our comments, you tend to hold back a little bit. And you look at YouTube, and these guys just rate on each other and racial comments, and it's really sad. Sometimes I don't even want to look at my comments in some of my videos. I'm like, oh, do I really want to take the moment and look at these because what am I going to see? And maybe it's competition. Maybe that's how they want to beat up on the competition. I don't know. Let's hope it gets better. And I heard that Google Plus and YouTube are going to come together a little bit more. So maybe our faces will show up on our comments in the future. I'm hoping.
That's going to be a very interesting experiment, right?
Yeah.
To see what happens. And I think actually maybe the Hangouts have changed it a little bit because a lot of people are afraid of video. I was at the beginning. I was really uncomfortable with my face, and I remember my first Hangout. I'll just have a picture, and right. And then with Hangout with the video, now we're becoming more and more comfortable, and we're actually comfortable not only seeing ourselves but interacting with other people, even in our PJs, right? Some people have Hangouts just to chit chat and talk around, and they have them scheduled, right? It's kind of like people getting together on a Hangout schedule to just hang out, which is wonderful. And I think maybe the more we become comfortable with video, maybe people will create more YouTube videos, and maybe your personality will come out even more, and people will become more personable. That's not to say that there aren't negative people out there that's still going to try to say bad things, But it'll be interesting, and I wonder really if this kind of culture, like you said, will permeate. I'm gonna missay that.
Permeate.
Thank you.
Permeate.
Out to all the businesses out there, right? And so now when you go out to like a local business or Microsoft or any other big corporation, because of the culture that's happening online and on Google+, it will actually change brick and mortar businesses because maybe our expectations will be different. Maybe we'll support those nice businesses online, and those not nice businesses will kind of feel, oh, we have to change the way we're engaging with people.
Yeah.
We have to lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
I think also, if you think about small businesses, that to me is one of the most interesting questions, over the next 10 years, is how is the local small business going to really tap into this whole kind of social media, but social networks in a way that's much deeper than they do today. Mm-hmm. And, small businesses, they tend to have many of the aspects of the stuff that we're talking about here, that kind of authenticity, soulfulness, connection, all that stuff. From what I've seen, a lot of times when they go online, they just completely freeze up and they're like, they get all serious and unreal. They kind of lose the most charming aspects of who they are. I think that, as now more and more of our access to Google Plus and Facebook and Twitter is coming through phones, through mobile devices, and as place gets more baked into our experience online, I think we're going to see some really cool opportunities start to open up for small businesses, small local businesses, to start tapping these social networks in ways that they're just not doing today. And Google, who's best positioned to go after that? Really, right now it's Google. Google Places, Google Maps, the Android phone. I mean, you know, they really are well positioned for this local, you know, this kind of renaissance of local business. And you know, Facebook is going to make a go for it too, of course. But
so Gideon, asking a question specifically about that. I'm a small businessman, and I'm in here listening to you talking about the social space and the critical nature of your interaction in it and the rules of it. And you know, the rules of small business are you go out and you present yourself and you talk about your products and you interact with people that want to ask you questions. But it seems in here you're saying that there's a whole structure of how you can connect, and it seems to me almost there's a layer that I'm uninformed about, that I need to become more informed about, that that as a small businessman causes me a great deal of pause. I mean, I don't want to blow it, you know. I don't want to come in and have this massive voice as this little person, you know. And so, you know, that's from what you're saying. The reflection to me is one of you know, I'm not going to say it's fear, but fear of failure based on, you know, this huge potential that's there.
Yeah. Thank you for actually admitting that. I think that's really, I think that's this thing that I was talking about, of kind of the freezing up, like, you know, it's small businesses, because, you know, the organization that I ran for the last 10 years was, it wasn't super small, but it was, you know, it was like 20 people. So it's not like, it wasn't a big business. It was here in Seattle. And when you're running a small business, I mean, you are so busy trying to just, you know, make payroll. You're trying, you know, you have all these other things you're trying to do. Trying to invest the time to learn all the nuances of the Google Plus culture is, like, that can't be a top priority. I mean, that's the unfortunate reality, right? Is that, you know, so I think the thing, I'll give you an example, but what I was going to say is that I think the thing is trying to take as much of what you currently do today through kind of face-to-face, you know, the way that you think, the way that you interact with people, and move that into these social networks. And so here's the example. We had some problems with our sink and one of our toilets last week, and we called a local plumber called Love Plumbing. They're based here in Seattle. These guys are incredibly savvy, it turns out. They have a website where they answer all kinds of questions online. They, you know, talk about being of service. They have like 10 to 15,000 visits a day to their website. Now, how did that happen? Part of what they were doing is that they were just getting a lot of questions. You know, probably, I don't know when they started doing that, but let's say it was 10 years ago, 10 years ago. They were having a lot of questions from customers, and they just started posting those online. And over time, that thing grew to a pretty big forum. You know, the other thing that they're starting to do is when they do, after they complete a job, one of the things that they're thinking about is doing a follow-up, just like an email notice saying, hey, you know, here are the places that really matter to us in terms of getting reviews. It's, you know, and there are a few of them, right? Yelp, but increasingly Google's, the Google Places. So I don't know. I mean, I think
you're saying that they, in an unobtrusive way, said these are places that are important for you to help us help others.
Yeah, and I think that if you can do that in a way that isn't, I mean, it's pretty subtle, right? You can't be too pushy. Trying to force somebody to recommend you is kind of offensive. But I think that there are definitely ways of doing it, and And when somebody does a good job, like in my case, like, do you think I would be raising these guys Love Plumbing up if they'd done a bad job? I mean, yeah, I might, but not in a way that they would want, right? But I'm grateful that the way that they served us, my family, was so service oriented. I'm happy to spread that goodwill around. And so I think, but see, most people, unlike me, I'm always thinking about how to kind of like send stuff around on social networks. Most people don't think that way. So if all you're doing is just simply doing a follow-up email with like a couple of ideas for like, hey, if you ever want to tell people about us, these are the places that matter to us. I think sometimes just suggesting that and giving them the option and making it very easy to do that's all it takes.
Another thing that I would add is that people follow you or join you because of what we're just talking about, because of you as a person, because your intention behind whatever it is you're doing. And so if you just, on Google Plus, build your own person, your own intention, build your own relationships, then people will, every time they think about plumber, they know you're a plumber, they'll come to you for service. And so the relationship the way you can use Google Plus to forward your business is by being available to other people and offering your expertise. So if you ever read about someone having, I don't know what your business is. Would you tell me, Patrick, what your business is?
Yeah, I'm involved in healthcare research.
Okay, so what can people pay you to do?
Help them conquer their degenerative condition, cancer and other things specifically like that. I mean, I don't want to talk about it in this forum because this is really public, but that in general is what I'm involved in.
So if someone is a cancer patient, then they can come to you and get advice and support.
That's a good example. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you are on Google Plus and if you search for any health issues or people, you can use the search box. And you can just come there and offer your advice. You're not selling anything, but you're helping people with whatever issue they bring up. They'll start following you, and if you offer your expertise on your stream and just say, hey, if you're in this situation, here's a good resource. I'll be on a hangout today for half an hour or an hour if anyone needs personal one-on-one support, then those relationships will build over time just because you're there, offering you services. And so you don't need to market. People will come to you because you're offering, because they know that that's what you are and that's your intention and that's how you service them. You know what I mean?
Sure. But the question though is kind of broader because we were told earlier by Gideon that Google Plus and the stream or the people here that there's certain mantras that are being built and it's layer upon layer and there's rules, and if you break the rules, you get warned about breaking them, and understanding that rule set, or where's the post about the rules, or who's got the keys to the rules in the community. And I saw G+ girl and she's the go-to girl, so I'm going to go figure out what it is that she has to say about it because I want to learn that. But I think I represent maybe 1% of small businesses that want to engage and have the time to ask, whereas most are just busy about getting done with what they have to do with payroll and taxes and other things like that.
One thing that would be, there are some really good posts. There are a few people who've pulled together some pretty good posts about what is, essentially the culture here, do's and don'ts on Google Plus. Yifat, I wonder if that'd be worth just doing a kind of a follow-up post on this, just to people who are on this with some links, because I think that for those here who have been here for a while, like some of you probably written some of those yourselves or compiled them yourselves. But for what I found, I mean, actually, I started on Google Plus in the very early days, but I didn't focus on it really until December. And I remember coming in at the end of December and going, oh my God, what is going on here? Like really trying to tune into the dynamics of what was cool to do and what wasn't cool to do, and not wanting to come across as a jerk or like it does. It's kind of overwhelming. So I totally get it, Patrick. I mean, I hear you, and I also think that it's tough when when you're running a small business. It's not your top priority, right? But you want to make room for it, and so I think that'd be cool if we could just do maybe a compilation of those.
Let me find.
Well, I've as a tool, I have used this to meet with people struggling, one-on-one. And I've bought a green screen, and I can put their information up behind me, and we can talk about it specifically. And so from a tool standpoint, this is unbelievable for a small business person. I mean, the value is exceptional, and anyone that has to go meet with people can use this tool and have a much richer experience, I believe. Because you control it. There are certain things that you can control here, and you don't have that extreme expensive of engagement where you're traveling and doing all those kind of things. Whereas you corporate people, I mean, you've had this kind of thing for years within the corporation.
Let me throw something at you guys and see how you feel about that. We're all different people. Right? We all attract different types of people to ourselves. And so what if, the rules that someone created just fit that personality, and they don't fit me, and they don't fit the type of people that I want to attract to myself. And so there might be a lot of etiquette rules out there, but maybe they're too corporate for my style of being. Maybe being a caricature is more my fun self, and being professional is someone, very, I don't know, bow and tie, someone else's type of setting. You know what I mean? So maybe Google Plus allows you to be yourself and attract, there are 90 million people here, right? 100 million people here. Do you really need 100, can you really interact with 100 million people? All you need is, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000, right? I'll be happy with 10,000 customers. So maybe the question is, maybe there is a little niche that is really just perfect for my type of personality and will make my experience here and my interaction and my ability to serve them better just by being myself. You know what I mean? So how do you feel about that? How do you feel about not having an entire role, but just being who you are and not worrying about other people and how they feel, because they'll find the other people that they connect with?
I'll say really quickly, that fits with my sense. I think it's kind of a mix, right? Because I think that there are some general guidelines, it's not cool when you're commenting on somebody's post. It's not generally considered that cool to put links in there to your stuff and continue to keep doing that over and over again and derail the conversation. That's kind of a general rule that's I think most people here tend to follow that. But I think that there is a lot, so I think that there's those generalisms or kind of general guidelines, but I think the thing that you're saying, Yifat, makes a lot of sense, right? That we birds of a feather flock together. There are people who I kind of tend to cross a lot of those clusters, but there are definite styles I've seen in terms of the way that people engage here.
And so maybe not worry about it too much, just, find. The beauty about Google Plus in my mind is that the difference is most social networks are public by default, whereas Google Plus is private by default. You decide who you're going to share what with, right? So if you say, if you're going to share a post just with me, then it's really private. And if you share it publicly, then it's public. And so you can really start engaging as yourself with the people that you want to be yourself and just put general stuff out there until you're comfortable until you figure out what works for you and your stream, because probably the people that follow you not follow me, or maybe just a few of them, and they follow you for a reason, right? They follow you. And so if they like what you bring to the table, the style that you write in, the way you communicate, your view on different topics. And so I think that's what Google Plus allows you to be really, is just shine as yourself and figure out for yourself what works for you.
Just one thing though, Yifat, from your company page, just be sure to post publicly, always. Yes. Because that's the only way you're going to be able to grow.
That's true.
Exactly, because otherwise you won't be visible in the search. So that would be silly for a company. And if I may say something, I try to, a shy Finn here, trying to get a word edgewise. So many things I wanted to talk about, but everybody will just, well, anyway, what Yifat was saying about, I would really, really underline the thing that you have to be yourself. If you want to have organic growth to your follower base, to the people who circle you, don't try to please anyone and everyone. Yeah. That will lead to disaster. Just do what you like to do best. Post about your interests. Post about the stuff you like. Don't care. It doesn't matter if it's not, consistent or about a niche product or something like. For instance, I post about scuba diving, golf, Google+, languages, again, Google+, this and that, and funny cat gifs every now and then. But it's... I don't think so many people have uncircled me because of those cat gifts, because they guess they know that something better is coming along soon. So, but just be yourself and be true to yourself and be honest to you and your audience, because all those people who have circled you or your page, they are also your audience, and they carry the word onwards. They share your good stuff. They +1. They might plus mention you somewhere on other person's posts, and this is all good if you're there for that. That is, of course.
That is totally true. And Liana, you were approached by Guy Kawasaki to help him with research to the book. So obviously everything that you write doesn't negate, but actually adds to your value in the stream. So this is great. I think the biggest problem maybe is that we don't know who we are. And maybe that is the problem. Who are you when you come here? Like, what aspect of yourself do you want to show? And maybe that is really the main issue. We're trying to copy our models or be someone that we admire. We are taught in school to kind of like repeat what the teacher is saying and not give our own opinions. And maybe that is the problem. When you come to this experience, like, okay, let me be myself. Who am I? and so figuring that out, and then just executing on it, or just, having fun discovering it here, is maybe the one thing that you need to do first. Like, what is your business? What are you, Virgin, or are you Netflix? So how do you do that, and how do you bring that out? And maybe that's maybe one of the ways to do it at the beginning is just like Gideon was saying, observing, right? That's the first layer. You observe what everybody is doing, you listen, and then you slowly engage. And then, slowly you build your circles, you build your tiers, you figure out who you want to interact with and on what level. Just have fun, right? Isn't Google Plus fun? I think that's why we're here. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. So we're 10 minutes over. If there are any other questions, go for it. This tends to take longer than we intend.
Just one thing I nearly forgot. Gideon was earlier talking about the small businesses and their social media plans and whatever. And at least in Finland, the problem is that the small businesses tend to be small. And the owner and the staff, they really don't have time to learn the social media gimmicks or whatever. And they'd rather focus on that brings the money in. That is the job at hand. So I have been thinking my brain out almost, and with a couple of companies in Finland now who actually they sell Google apps, they sell Google's tools to companies. we will start a pilot project where I will be a community manager for several companies, taking over their social media platforms and accounts and stuff, and trying to show them the way where they go, and of course training their clients, the business clients, training them how to use Google+, because none of these companies, they know they are in Google+, but they are lying very low. So this is something, this is a pilot project which I'm just launching in May, and we'll see what happens, because that also opens up possibilities for more people like me who are not social media gurus or not even trying or pretending to be, but you know, just love the whole thing and love Google+ and want to spread the sweetness and joy. And this way, I think it will be possible for more people than just me.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank God, my mic, sometimes it works and sometimes it does not. You know, I love Windows, don't you?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
people should
awesome.
People should be very wary of the catchphrase social media. I've been watching this hangout kind of prior to actually joining, but I think people should not worry about social media experts or expertise, because vis-a-vis Google+, I got to tell you, I've interviewed a lot of people privately who have anywhere between 50,000 followers and 1 million followers, and the 10 of them I've talked to couldn't put $50 together out of that entire pool of followers, right? So you really have to think about why you want to do or be here. If you're trying to make money out of social media, go to Facebook. They have a much better engine, platform, ad campaigns, the ability to buy into. Well, I mean, you can feel free to disagree with me, but
Sorry. No.
you know. Well, if you don't want to go to Facebook, that's fine, but it's absolutely imperative that you don't argue with me that Facebook is a much better engine when it comes to monetizing social media right now.
Absolutely for certain businesses.
Right. But I mean, if you want to do that on G+ now, I argue that it's almost a physical impossibility, because there's no real way to drill into demographics and say, I want 500 names of 45-year-old women. Physical impossibility right now.
That's true. That's true.
On Facebook, however, there are ways. So I mean, it depends. I mean, if you want to create a quote-unquote news program about topics that are interesting to you, then do it because you enjoy doing it. But if you're trying to make money, which is how I deem a social media expert to be, like, if you can't make money at what your expertise is, then you either need to be a nonprofit or you're not an expert. That's the way I see it.
But Anthony, I would argue with you that if you segment your circles correctly, and you know that you have internet marketers in one circle, then you can pitch directly to a specific message just to that circle. And so you can do that here. It will take more work, and you won't have an engine to rely on, just your own relationship with the people in that circle.
And your analytics. We have a plethora of analytics available to us from Google.
Yeah, I would say, just to jump in here for a second, I think the thing is when you think about Google, you can't just think about Google Plus though, because Facebook, their bet is pretty much Facebook. Now, a lot of it is distributed. You have likes and things like that all over the web, but the way you monetize is pretty much through Facebook, being up on Facebook, doing ads on Facebook, and I've run a bunch of ads on Facebook, and it is pretty good. But I think the difference with Google Plus is that, really the place where you monetize here is through the search engine. It's not through Google Plus.
Yeah, it's AdSense.
Right. Yeah, it's basically what's happening is you're active here on Google Plus. That boosts your search ranking for your website,
Right.
And that drives more traffic, and then it's up to you to convert that on your website.
Yeah, it's very oblique, is what I'm trying to get at, right? You know, it's not. There's no direct monetization on G+. You have to drive traffic away to a website where you're doing business somewhere else,
Sure.
and hope you convert them, and that's okay as long as you know that that's what's happening.
Isn't that the same with Facebook though? Your ads will send them to your website.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't buy on Facebook.
No, but but if you have a service like I do, for example, you can have a page up there where they can engage with you directly, and you can put your phone number on, and they can call.
Same thing here. You can put your phone number in the about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can do that too. That's true. But it's tough to set. They don't have an engine. It's not as clean and as neat where you can target ads based on demographic. Where here you have to create circles of demographic that you're looking for. It's different.
But I would say, I'd say that the relationship, and I think if you get a sale on Google Plus through Google Plus, I think that will actually generate even more sales because of people will talk about you and, you know,
very true.
Stuff.
Absolutely.
And I also think that if you put, like, you know, you have the Hangout button, put that on your website, you know, and people interact with you face to face right there on your website, not on Google Plus, but this is a feature that Google Plus offers you. Right, and so you can increase your sales like that, whereas in Facebook, people have to click on your ad or know you exist or be following you. You know what I mean? It's
well, like I said, you know, I'm a statistician by trade. Maybe I didn't say that, but if you guys can show me that you're doing it and you're making money doing it, and voila, you are a social media expert. But until then, no.
Shira, can I use you?
Who called themselves an expert?
No.
Oh, I mean, there's lots of people who tag themselves as experts in social media, and none of them are here, frankly, but there are many.
Shira, may I use your example?
Which one?
The buying books from your About page?
Yeah.
But you know that since Google changed the structure of the About page, that's gone down substantially.
Right, but you can change that if you bring it a little higher.
No, it's not the same, because what Google did was they changed the layout of the profile. Yeah. And initially, the websites that you were a contributor to or wanted to link out to were on the top right-hand side, which is prime real estate for your eye. And what they did was they changed it and put it all the way down the page. So visually, it has like zero impact anymore. And then what you need to do instead, which I did recently, was integrate the links that I really did want to share sort of into my introductory profile. But I don't think that that's that good, because I didn't really want to write about that stuff. I sort of wanted people to discover it if they liked me. So it's sort of...
What are you selling? I don't know you, so I apologize.
Hi. No worries. I can show you a lot of ways to make money from Google+, but it's just we took an example of my Amazon profile of people buying my books on Amazon. So I had a link of just my page on Amazon, which is like an unpushy way of selling if someone wants to check me out as a published author and so on. And so now I actually changed it to send people to my actual books because the traffic just sort of decreased from that source. So, you know, Google is still changing, and they're still going to change a lot. So, I mean, I got upset when the whole change happened because I could see it was a lot less good for self-monetization. But, I mean, it's out of our hands, and there are going to be a lot more changes, I mean, including ads. I'm sure there are going to be ads on Google Plus too. I mean,
well, don't you think that's what the white space is really going to be?
AdSense and stuff recently as well. So, like their AdSense went down a lot. So it's interesting to see how the search patterns are changing with Google Plus, and sort of to realign yourself in the new highway of information so that you can. And I think if you do that, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. You can make money or gain value from whatever activity you're doing by positioning yourself at the right pit stops. You know, of that highway, and we think we're all learning that language. We're creating the highway together, so it's
Here's a free idea for you. There are companies like Axiom and Sales Genie, right, where you can get names, basic information, and more importantly, age and gender demographic, right? And then you can search for those people and create custom databases within either G+ or Facebook. But you're going to have to excuse me. I have to take this call. I'm going to mute myself. I'll be right back.
Okay, so I think we moved Google Plus from engagement into selling.
Yeah.
Into engineering, yeah.
But
sorry, that's the wife.
but I think that the idea behind this is that we started with how do we engage with people and how do we create soulful relationships.
But why do you engage with people? That's a far more important question. Why?
My answer would be because I enjoy people.
Same here. Same answer.
And I just enjoy the interactions. Other people, I think Chris Lang is an internet marketer. That's what he says he is, and his entire intention is to make money.
Hi, Randy.
So we were talking about that at the beginning, how your intentions and your goals out of Google Plus is different for different people, and your interaction within Google Plus will reflect that. But if you come in here and you want to create soulful relationship, if you want to have deep relationships with people, then your stream will show that, and your relationship with people will show that, and then that, if you wanted to monetize it different later on, then you will come in from a different intention, whereas I want to help Gideon with whatever it is he's doing, and my product helps him, so I offer it. I'm not being a salesy person that just chose him based on his age, demographic, where he lives, and the income. And I think that will, in the long run, will create more sales for you and will create ripples that will increase your business rather than just be, one-time sale.
Well, no, of course, and my business isn't a one-time sale, and frankly, the demographic stuff is all behind the scenes. They never see it. They don't know why they get whatever invitation or invite or ping that they get. They'll never know. But okay, no, that's fair.
So that's our idea.
I think this becomes a problem when you're talking about companies and organizations, and on those levels, there's such a vast difference between how people do business as a big company or as a small, business, or as individuals that are just, have their main jobs but are socializing on Google Plus and doing stuff that they like about. These are vastly different people with different goals, different tool sets, and also different things that they can say. Because if you are representing a brand, or even if you're representing a company that you may not be the owner of, you have the etiquette of that company and the branding of that company on top of the etiquette of Google+. And sometimes that can be, like sort of trying to pull a big dinosaur along. So I think it is a challenge, and that, people have to really, the main thing about why are you on Google+ is really to define your goal. And it can be a few goals. I always say there's never one goal. My main goal may be to, personally brand myself, and through that I'm helping people, meeting great people, getting, strong on board on projects, doing my own projects, all kinds of things like that. But so it may manifest itself in different types of posts and activities, but it's still my goal. That's not the same as Nike's goal, so it's interesting to see how it's dealt with.
And I think, Shira, you're tying it up with what Gideon was saying at the beginning, how the culture of social media is really changing the way businesses are happening. And that really depends on the people in that business and how they interact, whether in social media or offline or online.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm always just scared of internet busy work and a lack of ROI. I mean, if I'm here because I like to socialize, which is true, and I do absolutely no business on here, then that's great, But I still can't see a way I can do business on here, which is scary.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'm doing the first ever Google Plus sourced traffic strategies book now from people that I met out on Hangouts over the last month, and you're all invited to nominate yourself for a good friend for a chapter. I still have a few openings. Cool. Johan Horak, Yifat are writing chapters. I'd love Elaine if you are getting if you want to hop on board. Let me know. I'll send you details later. It's not to sell this that I'm telling you, but this is actually an example. This is going to be published. People are going to get a lot of exposure, and that can definitely help people's businesses, brands, opt-ins, things like that. These are measurable things. So just as a short sort of example of a new project on Google Plus that could result in money for sure.
Yay!
This is actually maybe the crowdsourcing that Gideon was doing at the beginning, right? Like, how do everybody come together to the benefit of the whole, and creating something that either will be monetized but benefiting everybody because of the contribution of everybody.
Yes.
So it is differently. It is a different animal. Google Plus is a different animal, and it is what we make it. And so it's not coming in here and thinking that you have to figure it out like the way it is already. It's not. It's not. I mean, it's what you make of it.
Absolutely.
And that is the beauty. And I think that is the shift that Gideon is talking about, right? Gideon, from brick and mortar straight, kind of like very defined company, into a very organic entity that is defined by the people who are using it.
Yeah.
Be it bricks and mortar or be it virtual, it's always going to be what you bring to it. Mm-hmm. And having that heart-centered, that soul-centered change, and having that direction, if your intent is right, then that's what you're going to get back. You know, talk to Zig Ziglar, talk to, you know, Deepak Chopra, talk to Tony Robbins. They all follow their life path, and they all are basically heart-centered.
I'm dying to know what you do for a living. It sounds very new agey, whatever it is.
Actually,
which I think is good, but
I'm a social media and relationship marketing professional with a background in design.
Wow, that's definitely not what I thought you were going to say.
That's what I figured, yeah.
So let me
type somewhere along the lines of like didgeridoo massage therapist, but
oh heavens no.
Well, let me sum it up, guys, because we're like 30 minutes later. I think we started with the shift that is happening, that Gideon is writing about, and I think we came back to the same conclusion, that we are on kind of like the edge of thought and collaboration, and we are changing the way business is being done, and we are doing it through Google+, and we are defining what this is going to turn into, which is, to me, it's very exciting, and I think, you know, it can become a very beautiful monster, right? That will ripple away and change not only our life online, but also our brick and mortar and our life offline. Yeah. And I'm very interested to see how soon this shift will happen, and what we can do to actually accelerate it, because I think it'll be a good change. Yeah. So thank you everybody for coming to this hangout and staying 30 minutes later.
Thank
you. Thank you, Gideon.
Yes, thank you all. Yeah, it was great.
Thank you. Next week.
All right.
Yeah, see you next week.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Nice to meet you.
Bye, Jana. Bye, Shara. Yifat.
Bye.